Shalom, I'm Doran Ellen Beldotan in Svat. Shabbat went out here, I don't know, almost 4.5 hours ago, but I'm going to wait to publish this until Shabbat goes out in the wildest parts of the Wild Wild West, or the westernmost parts of the Wild Wild West. A few days ago, I watched some parts of a 3-hour-long meeting regarding Agunah. I jumped from presenter to presenter. I didn't have to listen to all of it. I'm 66 years old. I've probably heard most of it over the decades. And every time it breaks my heart. And since listening to what I listened to, I feel very tzapachit inside, and my heart is frankly breaking. Because Agunah is not necessary. It is not correct interpretation of Torah. It is absolutely imperative that every Jewish woman knows Hebrew well enough to be able to see immediately that the word Agunah is a very simple chiluf of ha'anug, or Anugah, her joy, her ecstasy. Word Agunah equal to 539 is yit'angu, they will be joyful. It's also Anug kadosh, a holy joy. It is also ba'atzilut. The secrets of the world of Atzilut are contained within the laws of Agunah, if one knows how to read Torah correctly. In the exact same way in which, in order to become pregnant, a woman's ovum has to know how to read the encoded information that came to her from the sperm and take that apart. First it has to be taken apart, and to know how to reconstitute it in order to build the embryo. Hebrew works in exactly the same way. I've said Bezrat Hashem in a number of my videos that Ivrit 682, which is, by the way, Maaseh Merkava, is hit'abra, she became pregnant. And it is also ubar kadosh, a holy embryo. It is also Hashem medaber kodesho, Hashem speaks His holiness. That's Ivrit. Torah 611 is at hara. So, in order for a Jewish woman to conceive Torah correctly, she has to be able to read it in Hebrew. Therefore, she conceives and becomes pregnant. The exact same processes that occur in the womb is the knowledge of the inception of all worlds. The highest level of learning Torah is for a woman to be consciously aware of what is going on in her reproductive system. To know the secrets of the womb, to know the secrets of the fallopian tubes, to know the secrets of the ovaries, to know the secrets of the ova, the time of their release, the conception, and the growing of the embryo, and the birth is supposed to be conscious knowledge to a Jewish woman. It is extremely dangerous for a woman who does not know Hebrew well and does not come from a family in which the women know Hebrew well to get married. Because if she can't so much as see that the word Agunah is Inugah, she's likely to become an Agunah. We do the mitzvot on the level upon which we understand the mitzvot. Ha-mitzvot, written correctly with one vav, is 541, which is imech, or imcha, your mother. Yeah? In order to become a mother in Israel, and it's also, by the way, Israel, 541 is Israel. In order to become a mother in Israel, a Jewish woman must be on the level of Torah awareness, of knowing how Hebrew works, knowing the correct spellings, knowing Hebrew grammar, dikduk, knowing Hebrew syntax, knowing how to take words apart with the arachim, the values of the words, not just the numbers, but to understand that these are values, these are moral values. To be able to take that apart and reconstitute in exactly the same way that we do that unconsciously in the womb. When a woman gets to that level of self-control, she cannot be controlled by any outside forces because she is in control of the laws of nature. And it is absolutely essential that Jewish women get to that level. Jewish men cannot get to that level, and they even admit it. The rabbis will tell you that the two highest levels, the two hechalot, the highest hechalot, are for women. But they like to do that on the level of lip service. They don't think that they're ever actually going to encounter that in the real world. And so, let's talk honestly, they take advantage of us in all kinds of which ways, if they know that we're ignorant of those things. When any Jewish male learns Torah, he is, to the best of his knowledge, trying to learn about what we do before, what we do in actuality, that we actually carry out. So he is learning about what we actually are, to the best of the understanding in his male brain. When a woman learns Torah correctly, not only is she understanding it sichlit with her brain, she's also learning what happens in her womb. The Hebrew word for womb is rechem. It has two of the same letters as moach, which is brain, plus another resh, which is sitko, his righteousness. It's also anachnu po, we are here. So a woman, a Jewish woman, absolutely must be on the level where she is consciously aware that she's not learning Torah like the way a man does. He's learning about it. She's actually, when we learn Torah, we are learning the deepest levels of what we actually are, what we actually do, and we are bringing that from the level of the subconscious or the preconscious into the conscious so that we can do it as we will, which is the real meaning of Sha'asani Kiyotsono. That we were made as God's will. Not in accordance with God's will, as God's will. A Jewish woman is God's will embodied in the flesh, living, breathing. And every Jewish woman must know that. And when a woman has come into that knowledge and is in control of it, the men regard us with yirah. They don't dare take the kind of advantage that is taken of women who don't know. Okay? Women are told by the men that we have to cover our hair because it says about Rivka Imenu, V'tit kas, and she covered herself. That's the way they understand it. V'tit kas, 886, is bahit galmut, in the flesh, to actually become actualized. She did not put a shmata on her head. It is talking about the actualization of the cosmos. One of the most absurd things that I see is Jewish women who want to get to a higher level of learning begin to learn Gemara and begin to learn Zohar. Why is this ridiculous? Because those are the books that were written by men which, in accordance with their imagination, they were trying to imagine what we actually do. So it's ridiculous of a woman to learn Torah like a man. A woman has to learn Torah like a woman. When we learn Chumash, we are learning about our own inner processes of life. Now, Chumash is very, very difficult to be able to read correctly. The Pshat is actually the hardest level to get to. It is true that Torah interpretation never diverges from the Pshat. Pshat means naked, everything stripped off. It's when all of the veils have been removed. That's the hardest level to get to. So for a woman to be learning Torah like a man, who can only grasp what we are with his own imagination, which cannot possibly, it's not an embodiment, it's only an imagination. We cannot learn like them, and when it hurts us, when it's to our detriment, neither can we accept their interpretations. It devolves upon us, when they have learned incorrectly, to correct their incorrect interpretations. A man cannot learn Hilchot Nashim. He is not on the level to be able to learn Hilchot Nashim. Women are greater than men. This is the reality. Women cannot rely upon men to tell us what our being is. The price that is paid for what's called puikat ol haTorah, breaking off the yoke of Torah, is terrible. And when women break off the yoke of learning Torah correctly on the level above men, the punishment is awful. It can be aginut. Instead of Ta'anug, right? Ta'anugi, it is aginut. Because she's not learning correctly, because she sees things like a man. She hasn't learned yet how to take the Hebrew apart and put it back together again. And some of the chilufim, some of the substitution values are really, really hard. I mean, you really have to like keep knocking at it until you break through the klipa and you finally get to the coconut water and the coconut meats, you know, and you really have to work hard, right? In the case of Agunah, which is Anugah, in the case of Aginut, which is Ta'anugi, my ecstasy, there isn't even a klipa on it. It isn't even like an almond shell. There's no klipa on it at all. It's there right in your face. So if that experience is not one of pleasure, we can be 100% sure that we haven't understood it correctly. And we cannot rely upon the men to get to the level of understanding הענוג של האישה באצילות, the absolute ecstasy of a woman in Atzilut, to get to that level. He can't. And if a woman relies upon it, if she makes herself like a rosh katan, she makes herself like a nishvisendik, the price that she pays is maybe being left like God forbid, an agunah. And the way the laws are formulated, it can't possibly be in keeping with Hashem's laws. It cannot possibly be. It cannot possibly be that a woman comes home early one day, b'hafta'ah, maybe, I don't know, she missed the bus or something, her husband thinks that she's going away. Meanwhile, he starts kiddie fiddling. She walks through the door, sees what's going on, and cannot demand a divorce from him. That cannot be Torah. That cannot be correct perush. And because we are the ones that it relates to, and because it is our responsibility to be able to take care of our children, it devolves upon us to know the Hebrew well enough to be able to read Torah correctly, to be able to read the perushim correctly. Aginut is the result of women's ignorance, period. If you don't know, if you don't see the word mamzer in mizmor, you don't read Hebrew. Yeah? Mizmor LeDavid. You see, LeDavid is Yeled. You see mamzer in mizmor. Obviously, you don't understand what you think a mamzer is. You don't understand. You don't see that it's a tam pazer. You don't see that it is rofei, which is to heal. You don't see that it is pe'ero, which is his glorification. You don't see that it is ve'afa, which is like the dust of the earth, the ash, the basic addition, you know, the fertilizer of the earth. You're not reading Hebrew like that. So you're not understanding correctly. So you're depending upon the interpretation of the men who never could understand women's productivity, women's production systems, because that is the creation itself. Only women can get to that level. Because you made yourself ignorant in a rosh katan, now you're living with some kind of a chila, some kind of a creep that might be crawling all over your children, and you're not able to demand divorce from him. Obviously, that's not Torah. Clearly, that is not Torah. Clearly, that is not Hashem's intention. And it's not enough to say, and I've heard this so many times all my life, it is not enough to say, of course we're suffering, of course it's miserable, of course but know that Hashem loves you, and this is the way it's supposed to be. That is so sick and masochistic and crazy. That is a Christian way of thinking, ladies. That is a Christian way of thinking. No, Hashem wants us to do the mitzvot in joy, in pleasure, pure pleasure, inug kadosh. I told you, that is aginut. The yud and the tav is kadosh, inug kadosh, holy pleasure. That is the way we are supposed to be doing the mitzvot. And if our lives are not lining up that way, it's because we have foregone our responsibility as Jewish women for being responsible to know that everything in Torah, which I just said is atara, you are pregnant, is talking about us, is talking about our mihut, our being as female Jews. We must take that responsibility extremely, extremely seriously, because we've seen that the result of not doing so is being wholly dependent upon the rabbi's interpretation of what they think is good enough for the women, and the terrible agony that results from it. In English, if you only think in English, you can see that Agunah and agony is the same thing. Can? But if you think like a Jew, if you think in Hebrew, if you're able to do chilufim the way this, and this is traditional midrash, this is traditional interpretation of Torah, to do it with the chilufim. This is the way, this is the prophetic tradition. This is the way it's done. This is the way the judges did it. This is the way the Kohanim did it. This is the way prophets did it. Yes? Then you don't see it as agony. You immediately see the inug and tanug. It's so fast that your mind looks at it, and you see sort of like a superimposition of both of the terms, and you understand this is inug. Now, even if we don't understand the entire mitzvah, exactly how to do it, the very fact that we have become consciously aware of the word inug in Agunah opens up the shearim, the gates in the mind and in the heart, and allows the Torah interpretation to flow, so that when we learn Torah, we begin to see what God really means. You see, the entire creation is in Torah, so it's extremely, extremely dense, and it's like the Reader's Digest of all of the possible worlds. Is what it is. So it's so dense that what we think we're reading is not the whole story. When you look at one single letter in Torah, you are looking at the entire creation. Any one letter in Hebrew is the pluripotent cell of all worlds. Obviously, you can't get that all in consciousness, like, one letter after another, bing, bang, boom, or else you'd be on the level of creating worlds, like bing, bang, boom. It takes a while to get there. We're supposed to, but it takes a while to get there. So when we read Torah, we think we're seeing one thing, but we're not. We're actually looking right into infinity itself. And so it becomes extremely important for us to be open to the beginning of wisdom, is realizing that we're not seeing everything that's written in Torah. That the meanings of the terms that we were told as children are not sufficient. That's the consciousness, it's a very small consciousness, and to have that consciousness grow. So the minute you do that one chiluf, you go from Agunah to Inugah, even if you don't see the whole mitzvah, you've already opened up the gates, and Hashem can come through and begin to open up the gates for you. But if you're stuck, if you're fixated on one particular meaning, you've closed the doors to Hashem. No, it means Agunah and nothing else, and I don't want to hear anything else. Hashem can't get through that. Cannot. When you say nisht, God will not impose wisdom on you. Only if you're open for it. God doesn't force us to accept more wisdom than we're willing to receive. So be kind to yourself. Keep that receptivity open, and be ready and willing to understand Torah far more deeply than you ever imagined you could. And that's true of all the time. No matter what level you get to, there are still levels that are unimagined, and we just have to maintain that openness, that receptivity, that being ready to accept Thank you for listening. Brachot l'shana tova. My blessings for a good and healthy and happy and abundant year. A year of women being able to be free in holiness. I'm not talking about being frei. I'm talking about being emancipated, to really being ready to be able to accept Torah. And that is the ultimate freedom. Thank you for listening.